Strategic overreach. The Second World War was a global conflict, and at its core was Adolf Hitler, the dictator of Nazi Germany. By 1940, Hitler's military success seemed unstoppable, with invasions across Europe. But by 1945, Germany had surrendered unconditionally, and Hitler was dead. So why did Hitler lose World War II? One of the primary reasons for Hitler's defeat was strategic overreach. Hitler's ambitions were vast, and his desire to dominate Europe stretched Germany's military and resources too thin. After the fall of France in 1940, Hitler turned his sights on the Soviet Union, launching Operation Barbarossa in June 1941. Hitler believed the USSR was weak and could be swiftly defeated. However, the sheer size of Russia and its harsh winter weather halted the German advance. The decision to split forces between Moscow, Leningrad, and Stalingrad weakened the German effort. Hitler's strategy spread his forces too thin, and the Germans were unable to sustain a prolonged campaign on the Eastern Front. This marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. Underestimating the Soviet Union. Another key factor was Hitler's underestimation of the Soviet Union. He believed the Soviet Union was fragile, and its communist government would collapse under pressure. This miscalculation proved catastrophic. Initially, the Germans made rapid progress, but the Soviets fought back fiercely. The Russian winter, combined with the Soviets' scorched earth tactics, devastated the German army. The German supply lines were stretched to the breaking point. The Battle of Stalingrad, in late 1942, was a turning point. The Germans lost over 300,000 men, and the Soviet victory shattered Nazi hopes of a quick victory in the East. The Germans were forced into retreat, and the Soviet counteroffensive marked the beginning of the Germans' downfall. The Soviets, having gained momentum, gradually pushed the Germans out of Eastern Europe and into Germany itself. The Battle of Britain and the RAF. In 1940, Hitler turned his attention to Britain, launching the Battle of Britain to destroy the Royal Air Force RAF and pave the way for a German invasion. Hitler underestimated Britain's ability to defend itself and the strength of the RAF. Despite being outnumbered, the RAF used radar technology, strategic air defense tactics, and their knowledge of the terrain to defend Britain effectively. The Luftwaffe's failure to achieve air superiority was a significant blow to Hitler's plans. By October 1940, the Luftwaffe had been repelled, and the invasion of Britain, Operation Sea Lion, was never launched. The failure to defeat Britain not only kept a key opponent in the war, but also lifted Allied morale. It marked the first major defeat for Hitler's forces and was an early sign that Nazi Germany was not invincible. The United States' entry into the war. In December 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, prompting the United States to enter the war. Hitler, already at war with Britain and the Soviet Union, declared war on the US despite the fact that he believed America was too distant to be a serious threat. The US quickly proved to be a game changer. With its industrial capacity and vast resources, the US supplied the Allies with crucial war materials, vehicles, and equipment. This shift in resources significantly bolstered the Allies' ability to fight on multiple fronts. Moreover, American troops helped to turn the tide in Europe and the Pacific. The US entry into the war added another powerful adversary against Germany and hastened the collapse of the Third Reich, resource shortages, and the blockade of Germany. As the war progressed, Germany faced significant resource shortages. The Allies imposed a blockade on Germany, preventing access to critical resources like oil, rubber, and food. Germany struggled to maintain its war effort without these vital supplies. In particular, the loss of oil proved disastrous for the German military. Germany's war machine relied heavily on oil for tanks, aircraft, and trucks. As the war dragged on, German forces could no longer maintain the fuel supply needed for their operations, particularly on the Eastern Front. The failed attempt to capture oil-rich regions in the Soviet Union, such as the Caucasus, only worsened the situation. While the Allies were able to produce and distribute resources at an overwhelming rate, Germany's resource shortages weakened its ability to continue the fight effectively. The shortage of essential materials, such as rubber and oil, left the German military less mobile and less effective, further undermining their war effort. The D-Day invasion and a two-front war. In 1944, the Allies launched Operation Overlord, better known as D-Day. The successful landings in Normandy opened a second front in Western Europe, forcing Hitler to divide his forces between the Eastern and Western fronts. The invasion in the West, combined with the ongoing Soviet advance in the East, put Germany in a pincer movement. Hitler was now fighting a two-front war, something he had hoped to avoid. Diverting troops from the East to defend the West weakened his position, and the Germans were unable to halt the Allied advance. By mid-1944, the Allies were making rapid progress through France. In the coming months, the liberation of France and the push into Germany accelerated. While the Soviet army continued its advance from the east, Germany's ability to defend itself was completely overwhelmed. Hitler's leadership and mental state. In addition to external factors, Hitler's leadership played a significant role in his defeat. As the war went on, Hitler became increasingly isolated and erratic in his decision-making. He often ignored the advice of his generals and micromanaged military operations, leading to poor decisions. Hitler's mental state also deteriorated over time. His obsessive commitment to his ideological goals made him resistant to change, and his increasingly desperate decisions led to Germany's collapse. For example, his refusal to retreat from Stalingrad despite the unfolding disaster exemplified his stubbornness and inability to adapt to shifting realities on the battlefield. Moreover, his deep-seated racial ideology blinded him to strategic realities. He underestimated the resolve of the Soviet Union and overestimated the strength of his own forces. Hitler's autocratic style and refusal to delegate important decisions severely hindered Germany's ability to react to the changing tides of the war. Conclusion. In the end, Hitler's defeat was caused by a combination of factors: strategic overreach, underestimating his enemies, the entry of the United States, severe resource shortages, the opening of a second front, and his own leadership failures. His attempt to dominate Europe stretched Germany's resources too thin and eventually led to total collapse. By 1945, Germany was surrounded on all sides by the Allies. The final destruction of Berlin in May 1945 marked the fall of the Third Reich. Hitler's dreams of a 1,000-year empire were shattered, and the world was forever changed. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think was the most significant factor in Hitler's defeat? And don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time, stay curious.